moving abroad or becoming a medical tourist is the best asset protection, especially for a senior that expects to rely on Medicaid as he or she advances in age. This has nothing to do with the new administration's expectations of cutting Medicaid, but it has everything to do with how healthcare in the United States is run, which is based on a profit-driven model and to maximize profit, not about healthcare. And so because of that, it would be prudent to not look to the government to make any changes as it relates to healthcare. And so it's up to each person to have agency regarding how they are going to access healthcare because their government is not going to give it to them. As it stands, Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid is a needs-based program facilitated by whatever state a person may live in. And so the state-run Medicaid looks at a person's assets to determine whether or not they're eligible. Ultimately, Medicaid will disqualify an individual who has too many assets. There is a limit in income, and there's a limit in the value of their private home if they do have one. So each state has their own standard of what the limit income that person can have in order to qualify for Medicaid, and they have a limit in the equity of their private home to disqualify that individual. These numbers fluctuate and they change, and there's so many seniors that are perhaps retiring or advancing in age and expecting to rely on Medicaid to supplement their Medicare, only to find out they have too many assets. And they're saying to themselves, too many assets? That sounds like hogwash. I am lower middle class. How can I not qualify for Medicaid? I don't consider myself to be living in decadence. I have a modest home and a modest retirement. That alone may disqualify an individual. And this is news to many people, especially if you live in an area where the real estate value is high, such as California or New York. There are so many modest homes owned by modest individuals that had a normal 9-to-5 job or were civil service workers, and yet the value of their home has inflated because of the demand of the market or whatever the case may be. And so they find themselves in an extraordinary position, not being eligible for Medicaid, unbeknownst to them, because they thought for all purposes that they're working poor. And so the limits that have been set are set to be reduced with the new administration. And how these things play out, typically regarding new applicants who will be relying on Medicaid in the upcoming months or upcoming years, the Medicaid requirements that we have now, remember, depending on the state, those requirements will become even more stringent, making it even more difficult for individuals to qualify. Also, the proposed changes, again, this is up to legislation as well. There may be an imposed work requirement. So this may require individuals who are currently receiving Medicaid aid to have to find some sort of work. It also may require seniors who expect to be retirement to have to stay working in some capacity in order to qualify for Medicaid. So it won't just be needs-based anymore. There will be a working requirement component too. For the disabled community, this may impact them where how judicious is the system going to be in terms of assessing that this person is able to work? And then there's capping in federal funding. Plans include placing caps on federal Medicaid spending, which could limit the amount of funding states receive, potentially resulting in reduced coverage or benefits. So this has to do with a patient expecting certain things to be covered under their Medicaid as it previously was, only to find out, no, that medication is no longer covered, or that procedure in the hospital is no longer covered. For example, if Medicaid previously covered your diabetes medicine, it may no longer cover that. So that's important to note. Or it may cover, I'm just speaking hypothetically, certain blood work that would be done, only to now the patient will be responsible for paying out of pocket for those costs. It also will perhaps, and I really see this happening, impact nursing home care, what's covered in the nursing home care. And if you've seen my previous videos, you know that the nursing home care model is at a breaking point, not only because of shortage of nursing home care facilities, but also the poor care in facilitating care for seniors in the nursing home facilities. So I see Medicaid not covering a lot of the seniors who are living in nursing homes, which will have a catastrophic impact, because how are these individuals supposed to come up with tens of thousands of dollars to remain in the nursing home? So this will trickle down to those who are relying on senior living or assisted living. So previously, seniors, as they began to get up in there in age, they started to implement asset protection, such as irrevocable trusts, in order to protect their assets so that they can qualify for Medicaid. But as it looks like the requirements may become stringent, that may not necessarily be the most appropriate model for these new changes. If the requirements are more stringent, that means that's going to impact estate planning attorneys as well, in terms of advising their clients. What previously was done was saying, oh, if you put these assets in an irrevocable trust and you do it within the 5-year look back, then you can likely qualify for Medicaid, because once Medicaid examines your assets, you are eligible. But the requirements becoming more stringent leaves a lot of estate planning attorneys in a pickle as to how to advise their clients going forward. I have been advising clients to think of alternatives to healthcare, to not rely on the US system to have healthcare as they become seniors. I understand the clients that work with me are a privileged bunch to have the monies to seek an estate planning attorney. Nevertheless, I advise them that you really have to be judicious in knowing that you will not be able to rely on Medicaid to supplement your your healthcare needs in the event that you need them. So what is your plan B? Which is why I'm a proponent of either moving abroad if one person has the means to do that. Moving abroad is a solution because every country has universal healthcare, with the exception of the United States and perhaps Guam. Every country believes that healthcare is a priority, even though their healthcare system may not be as extensive. The understanding is healthcare is a human right. So if a person moves abroad, the likelihood that they would encounter universal healthcare is highly likely, even if they have to pay out of pocket for private health insurance, which most countries have, if they don't have universal health insurance. So that is why I'm a proponent of moving abroad, because it gives a person leverage in accessing healthcare that they cannot receive in the United States. Plan B is becoming a medical tourist. If you don't want to pick up your life and move to another country, that's totally fine. But still, you are going to have to rely on international systems to supplement your healthcare needs if the United States is not going to provide it. It sounds like an exotic notion, but more and more Americans are normalizing traveling to different countries to access healthcare because of the breakdown in the United States. So I have a Move Abroad program which helps you if you are at your wit's end and you want to move abroad. So we iron out a plan so that you know what to do as it relates to moving abroad, how to go through the visa process, are you eligible under their visa requirements, what to do with your stuff in the United States, as well as how to access healthcare in these countries, how to sign up. We walk you through everything, all the components of moving abroad, and it also facilitates a community, so you're not there in a foreign country not knowing what to do. That's coupled with my medical tourism programs, which helps Americans access healthcare in Colombia. And so Colombia leads the world. It's in number 18, has advanced, innovative, comprehensive healthcare that many Americans, Canadians, Europeans go to Colombia just to access their healthcare because it's so robust. 97% of Colombians, as it is, have healthcare because healthcare is a human right in Colombia, and they do not rely on the profit-driven model like it is done in the United States. So if you're interested in any one of those programs, I will leave the information in the description box. If you have questions regarding Medicaid, please leave them in the comment section. I am more than happy to answer any questions. With all these changes happening, I understand many people are at their wits' end trying to understand it. But Medicaid, Medicare, moving abroad is a solution. It may not be the perfect solution. So this is why I do these videos. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.